So please begin.
Very good.
Thank
Very
you for
good.
being here.
Well, thank you, Pat, for having me. And I thank Judy Nadal. And I thank Alexis. Thank you so much, Alexis, for your help. We did a little mini rehearsal last week, too. So it was nice to get everything set up. So thank you. I appreciate your expertise there. Can you all hear me okay? Just a thumbs up. Good. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay. Well, very good. Again, thanks for having me here today.
I'll check with him when you.
I'm hearing some background noise, but there we go.
Give me just a second.
Sure.
Nancy, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Okay.
Thank you very much. Very good. Well, very good. So thanks again. Thanks for having me today. Again, my name is Nancy Alexander. I'm a physical therapist, a fitness professional, and a published author. As Pat mentioned, I published my book, An Unlikely Gift, Finding Inspiration Caring for My Father with Dementia. I published that back in September 2018. And, you know, it's quite a journey that we're on, right? And it's a memoir of my relationship with my father, who meant an awful lot to me. I don't know if you realize it, but I'm coming to you from Florida. I actually, last October, moved to Florida. I live in Apollo Beach. So I'm in the Sunshine State, and it's true. There's a lot of sun here today. So, so again, thank you for having me here today. And some of you may know me. I remember meeting some of you with my work at the Canandaigua YMCA. I helped them with the programming that they're still doing there. And I'm really glad that I could be a part of that. And I really feel privileged to know you and to know that the work that you do such great work as a group and also in the community. So thanks for all you do. I wish I could be there in person. I wish we all could be in person, right? But I'm grateful for having this as an option for sure. So today I want to share with you some stories not related to my work as a physical therapist. That will come at another time. But these stories are about handling change and overcoming challenges. And we've had our share lately, haven't we? Between COVID-19 pandemic and just the changes that are ongoing. Today, what I want to do is share with you also 6 strategies to handle change and to navigate your new normal. And I'm going to, I think, go through the presentation now. We've got some time set us up at the end for some question and answer. So I look forward to that, to have conversation with you. So before I get into that, I want you to meet somebody first. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and share my screen, if I may. Perhaps Alexis.
Yep. Okay.
All right, very good. So I just have accompanying pictures, so I think you should still see me and then my main screen here. So meet my dad, Jim Alexander. My dad, you know, I have to say I am my father's daughter. And we were very close from as long as I can remember. And my dad was a very special, caring man. And, you know, just some snippets of that and how much I just adored him. When I was younger, I remember being very young in grade school. And I lived on Long Island. I don't know if anybody else is here from that area. My dad worked in New York City. He had a commute every day of at least an hour back and forth driving. And I remember sitting on the stoop by myself, just waiting for my dad to come home so I could see him. And I could see him come in and turn the corner, and he would come into the driveway, get his things in order, and step out of the car, give him a big hug, and we would walk into the house. And I don't know how many times I did that, but I just couldn't wait to be with him. I adored him from the get-go. And what a tough commute he had, but he always had a smile on his face. and not just with commutes, but just with challenges. He took them with a grace that I can only aspire to. He just was incredible in that way. Um, and hockey, believe it or not, ice hockey was something that my dad and I shared, and really we bonded like that with that as when I was young. And so my dad grew up in Canada. He played hockey probably since he could walk, and played until his mid 60s. So it was a big part of his life, and it became a big part of my life too. So I have this memory of my dad when I first played hockey. I had learned how to skate. I was 14 at the time, and I was going to play hockey for the first time. And he signed me up for this clinic at a nearby rink. And at the time, girls didn't play hockey. It just didn't happen. And so I was the only girl there. And they didn't have a locker room for girls. So what I had to do is I had to dress in my gear at home and get everywhere, put my sneakers on and carry my skates and my stick into the rink. And boy, was I nervous. I remember the first time. I knew I was going to be the only girl, but it was also the first time I ever played hockey. So we're walking up to the rink. We get out of the car. I got all my gear on, probably a baseball cap or something. And we're walking to the doors, and my dad is with me, and a gentleman he knows is coming the other way, leaving the rink. And he says to my dad, "Oh, I see you brought your son to hockey today." And I'll tell you, as a young girl of 14, that is a little traumatic. And I was nervous enough. And, part of me wanted to just turn around and go back and sit in the car. But my dad, he put his hand on my back and said, "This is my daughter, Nancy." And we just continued walking right in. And I'll tell you, that was very symbolic because he had my back then and he had my back always. So just a pretty special relationship. For years, I played hockey. I played hockey in college. Here is a picture of my dad and I. I played at Oswego, upstate New York. And give me a little credit for showing you with this hockey hair that I have after a game. Again, my freshman year, my dad would come up and watch our games, 7-hour, 8-hour drive. Again, he's driving all week, all day long. But he would come up and see me. He'd come up to Albany when I played at RPI. He was just always there. He gave of his time for me. Just very special. He actually coached me too a while before I ended up going to college. So pretty special. This again is my freshman year. My junior year, I was named captain of the team. My team voted me as team captain, and such an honor and a privilege. And the only thing I could think of was I have to get back to my dorm room and call my dad and tell him. He was just the guy. He was my go-to guy to call him anything, something good, something bad, whatever I wanted to share. He was typically my first call. So just an amazing relationship. I'm blessed. And so fast forward a little bit, it's 1994, and my mom had passed away after a short illness. I was in my senior year of PT school. I went to University of Buffalo, and I was in my mid-30s when I went back to school and graduated. So my mom passed away just the fall of my senior year. So to make a long story short, I visited my dad right away, and I said, I want to take care of you. Whatever you need, I'm there for you. And so what he did the following spring is he sold his home on Long Island, and we moved together to Canandaigua. And that's how I ended up in Canandaigua. I lived there for 24 years, and I took care of my dad for the last 18 years of his life, again, in Canandaigua. So like he had my back years ago, it was my turn to have his back. And that was how it was going to go. So that's how I decided to write this memoir, An Unlikely Gift. It was for his legacy to live on, and I'm proud of that. As I wrote it, I also decided I wanted to help others out there, caregivers in particular, but really anyone who just has that desire to want to make their next years their best years. And that is my mission now. And it will continue forward. It lends a hand into so much of what I'm doing. So I'm not the same person. Quite honestly, that said, I would take care of my dad. I am so far better. I can't even describe to you. Sometimes I think I'm two separate people. I just learned so much, and I'm so fortunate to have that opportunity to help him. So my role, you know, was a caregiver in this story, and I realized that. But for all of you here today, um, we all have our dreams and our hopes and our faith, hopefully too. And I want to just say, I think we can all be better if we put our mind to it, if we focus on that. Um, and it happens with change, right? We evolve with change. But I think again, we can all be better if we choose to be. And that's what takes us now to this time we're in, this pandemic, this COVID-19, and this new normal. Talk about change, right? And again, it's gonna evolve over time. But I also feel that you all know change very well, and you may not realize it, but I really feel you're all experts in your own right in navigating change and navigating a new normal, right? You had to be. You had to be. Um, you know, that time when you're diagnosed with PD and your family, your caregivers, your friends, it's a change. It's a change, and it's something that we start working on, I believe, almost immediately. Like, okay, what do we need to do now? How are we going to do this? We'll do this. How is it going to go? So I believe you're experts. I believe it started right from the moment you heard, um, and I hope you give yourself that credit to say, you know what, I've really overcome a lot. I've really handled this change the best I could, which is really all we can do, and now we need to move forward. So, you know, uh, I have the hindsight of my relationship with my dad. It's been about 6 years now since my dad has passed away. Again, I wrote the book 2 years ago, so I've had time to reflect. Certainly writing the book was really a lesson learned as well in that. Um, but but again, give yourself some credit, and I think you know more than you do, and I encourage you to share your stories too, whether you're newly diagnosed or it's been some time since you have been. You're on a journey, and sharing that journey can help others, regardless of where they are. I mean, we're not all ever on that same path at the same time, but please understand that you can help others too. So with that, I also I do write a blog, and I have a couple stories I want to share with you. Two stories in particular of folks who really handled change in amazing ways. So let me get that reading out. And so this, by the way, these two folks that I'm talking about today, I did feature them in an article on my blog, but they know that I'm speaking today. They gave full permission to share their story as well as their names and their identities. So I am doing that today because it's what they wanted. So here's Bonnie Andre. This is an abbreviated version of my blog post, which I'd like to read to you. Never give up. That's what Bonnie Andre from Victor, New York would tell you. At age 60, she experienced what she describes as her defining moment. It was a horrendous car accident that few could survive. She did survive, and because she did, she lives with a passion to be active and healthy and encourages others to do the same. Her accident was 12 years ago, and she still remembers it well. It was in 2006, and she recalls she had a new granddaughter at the time. She was coming home from her hairdresser and was driving up a hill and lost consciousness. She drifted into the other lane where she crashed into another vehicle. They say the combined effective speed was about 80 miles per hour, said Bonnie. She regained consciousness briefly after the collision when they were cutting the car apart to get her out. It had collapsed around her. She opened her eyes and she saw her arms up in the air, and her arm had an obvious fracture to it. There was a lot of exposed bone. and she remembers the ambulance taking her to the hospital. She had multiple fractures, both bones in her right forearm, every rib, sternum. She also had a separation of the left clavicle and at her sternum. She had a collapsed lung. The most serious injury was called a transecting aorta, and it's basically a rupture of the aorta. And it was from that sudden stop, a deceleration to a stop. And fortunately, it was slow to develop, and they repaired it with a stent. This was the first time a stent was used for an accident repair, and it was 100% successful. Bonnie is a walking miracle. So many people give up. It's easy to do, Bonnie said. The medical professionals who work with me said I'd never be able to perhaps walk, but even move my arms again, especially that one arm that was so badly injured. She goes, I can. Their prognosis made me more determined. Since her accident, Bonnie has had both her knees replaced due to arthritis. About 6 weeks prior to the accident, she actually had her bone fused in her big toes because of arthritis. And I will add that she has since had her shoulder, one of her shoulders replaced due to arthritis, and last week had a hip replacement due to arthritis, and she's home and recovering well. She's amazing, amazing. She goes, I didn't give up then, and I don't want to give up now, Bonnie said. There's so much living yet to do. Life is great as long as I can be active. Bonnie admits she got very depressed during her long recovery. From being very active to sitting in a recliner 24/7 was depressing. She goes, and I got this idea that I had to let the bad feelings out from time to time or go crazy, said Bonnie. I started having what I call pity parties. I would look at the clock and say to myself, you've got 10 minutes, then you're done. Scream, cry, do whatever you want, then go back to being positive and upbeat. Said Bonnie, make sure you do this when you're alone. She said with a half smile, and she wants to remind others that they are human and that you're going to feel sorry for yourself, but you also need to set limits for this. I think it's just a great lesson. More importantly, Bonnie focuses on what she can do. Among her many interests and activities, she loves to travel. When I wrote this about a year or two ago, she had returned from Scotland with a trip with her sister. She's been active for many years in equestrian events. She enjoys yoga, Pilates, different types of exercise. She's an advanced alpine ski instructor. She also is a ski patroller and helps teach others, train others how to be ski patrollers. She also ran a marathon at age 52 in Ireland, which she said was one of the biggest challenges she has ever done. Bonnie said her recovery from her accident lasted about 1 year, and the only limitation she has is she cannot straighten her fourth finger on her right hand completely. That is remarkable by any standard. If I had not been in that good a shape when it happened, she said, I was told I may not have survived. One reason I survived this accident is to encourage others, Bonnie added. I believe that, I really do, she said. Never give up, keep moving. Find challenges mentally and physically, find challenges that are achievable and meaningful, but face your struggles head on. Just never give up. So I just had to share that. She's an inspiration to me, as well as so many others. And I don't, if you can see her picture, you can just see it in her face, I think. So there's Bonnie Andre. I want to now share one more story here with you. You may know this gentleman. His name is Bob Locke, and I'll go ahead and read an abbreviated again article here, story here. I was reminded of Bob recently when I saw one of those inspiring quotes on social media. It said, life is all about how you handle plan B. We're all dealt with change in life, aren't we? Some things just don't go as planned. Sometimes we get some news that has the potential to rock us to the core. Truth is, we have a choice in how we respond. Bob is 71 years young and retired 7 years ago. His wife retired soon after. About 4 years ago, Bob started noticing some changes to his body. He self-diagnosed it as restless leg syndrome. He also noticed his walking changed. His feet were wider apart and his arms were up in the air beside him. His facial expression changed. actually, it didn't change, was what had happened. He had little expression at all. He had bouts of constipation that he could not explain. And he's a frequent swimmer, and he began to notice that he couldn't flutter kick like he used to. I sunk, Bob said. I just didn't have the strength or coordination to do it. His symptoms were explained about 1 year later when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. That is not how I plan to spend my retirement, Bob noted. I asked Bob what his initial reaction was, and he said, I wasn't surprised. As a pharmacist, he had known something wasn't right and had an idea what it might be. He revealed he has an uncle with Parkinson's, and his younger brother has Parkinson's as well. Bob is a doer. He is very active. When the Y was open, he swam. They basically there 5 days a week, swimming, doing cardio, etc. He walks about 5 miles a day. He's active on the weekends too. And he's always really been active, both personally, physically, as well as professionally. He retired from UR Medicine's Thompson Health after 30 years of service. He was director of pharmacy there and also cardiopulmonary services. He served on the Thompson Guild and works at Habitat for Humanity, and he does enjoy woodworking and has a shop at his home. And it's easy to see that Bob has contributed greatly to the health of his community. His accomplishments are many, his achievements are extensive. His attitude, however, is arguably his greatest asset. When I received this diagnosis, I decided I could feel sorry for myself or move on, Bob said. I'm not going to change it. It is what it is. Sitting and stewing is not going to help. Soon after being diagnosed with Parkinson's, Bob took action. He enrolled in treatments called LSVT Loud and LSVT Big. He said both helped him greatly. He started journaling about having Parkinson's disease and noted observations he'd made and writes about that. He says it's important for me to continue to exercise and to just keep moving. I feel better when I do. He could have become angry. He could have complained. He could have been bitter. He is none of those things. He is the same kind and caring man he always has been. He made a choice to keep on living, and sharing the story is part of that. He wanted to share that, like I said earlier. He hopes that others who are dealt challenging diagnoses can learn to live with their condition and, more importantly, live a good life at that. As long as you can doing what you're doing, do it, said Bob. Know your limits, but do what you can do. And as I mentioned, he enrolled in that LSVT Loud and Big, and that's something he still does, he says, every morning. And he does some stretching and light lifting in light of the YMCA not being open. So again, just an amazing man. A grace he exhibited is really quite remarkable. So there is Bob Block. Pretty cool. So with that, I'm just going to transition here and share with you the 6 strategies to help you handle change and to help you navigate your new normal. So to me, these relate whether you have Parkinson's disease, caregiver, COVID-19, whatever those challenges and everything in between, all those challenges. So with that, here are our 6 strategies we're going to talk about. So number 1, I'm just going to briefly go through these here for you. So number 1, reach out and get help. You're not alone. It's so hard to sometimes to say that and hear that right in this time. But thank goodness for technology like this that we can be together. But please believe that you're not alone, and know that you can't possibly do everything. And I actually had to learn this really the hard way. And I have one more reading here from my book, An Unlikely Gift. And this was at a time where my dad, just episodes were happening, and I wanted to keep him safe. That was just first and foremost in my mind. I was conflicted with saying I would take care of you. So when you need help, that's a conflict. I wanted to help, but I knew I couldn't do it all myself. And this was how I learned that lesson. So this is from chapter 9 in that book. The chapter is called The Sign. I was wondering how much more of this I could take. I need a sign. I remember praying. I need to know what to do here. I want to do the right thing, but what is the right thing? I begged for an answer. Please, please tell me what to do here. Apparently, I just had to ask because I got my answer within 24 hours. I came home after dark the next night after having dinner with friends. I saw an animal, likely a skunk, out in the yard when I pulled in, and I briefly mentioned it to my dad. We chatted a little bit and we both went to bed. The next thing I knew, a very loud knock startled me out of a deep sleep. It was a knock at the back door. Who on earth could be knocking at the door at this time of night? It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I went to the door and looked through the peephole, and there was a deputy sheriff standing there. My dad had not awoken yet, and I was very grateful for that. I opened the door, and the officer said, "I'm very sorry to bother you, but do you know a James Alexander?" I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "He's my father, and he's here sleeping in the house." As soon as those words came out of my mouth, my father walked into the mudroom from outside the house. What in the world happened? I asked, because obviously my dad was not sleeping in the house. He had gone out for a walk in the middle of the night with temperatures in the 30s. He was wearing an orange and black flannel hunting coat that I had never seen before. He had on slippers, and underneath the hunting coat, his pajamas. The kind deputy had brought him home. I am not exaggerating when I say I could not have been more heartbroken and grateful all at the same time. I knew right then and there that this was bigger than me, and I knew I had to do a better job of keeping him safe. I needed help. And so that was very sobering, as you can imagine. The next day, though, boy, I went all out. I made calls from morning till night, started with physicians, healthcare practitioners, that I knew my dad went to. I called anybody I knew to try to get help. And the funny thing was, as soon as I asked for help, I got it all around me. It was incredible, the help that came to me. And in quite honestly, the help was there all the time. I just didn't see it. It's not what I was looking for. But as soon as I looked for it, it was all right there. And it just was just an amazing, amazing lesson for me. So, I want to say, asking for help is not a weakness. I think it's one of the biggest strengths that we can have. So please reach out, get help if you need it. Another number 2 here is support one another, be with one another. We're an example of this right now. Social distancing is not social isolation. Please remember that. We need each other now more than ever. Our spouses, our families, our friends, groups like this one are just so important so that we can connect with one another and help us understand, right, that we are not alone. And these groups like this, I learned this when I was a facilitator for the Alzheimer's associations. I ran their support group at Quail Summit for years, and everybody has a story, right? As I said earlier, and you can get help, but you can also give help. And I think actually by giving help, you help yourself. I really do believe that. So I encourage you to give. You have something to give. You may not think you do, but you do. Like I said, you have your story, and I encourage you to give. I really do, because by sharing your story, you're likely going to inspire others who have been in maybe the place you're in, or the place that you've been so recently. So support one another. Number 3 is take time for yourself. Be good to yourself. Spend time doing what you enjoy as best you can. These are hard times. Like for me, when I was taking care of my dad, again, the hockey connection, I was actually still playing hockey at that time. I played in a women's league up in Rochester. And my dad, I didn't want to leave him alone too much. So what I would do is bring him with me. He loved it. He watched me play hockey. He could be with others. I knew there were others there too watching, and they could stand with him and just kind of keep an eye out for him. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful to be able to do that. And, you know, I was in a garden club then. I actually joined one here as well. So whatever your interest might be, I encourage you to seek them out. You know, a lot of clubs and organizations are meeting online now, so you can still stay active in those things. Um, you know, other than that, with COVID, not being able to go out too much, you know, things, journaling, you know, Bob talked about journaling, even puzzles, whatever you can to take a break from your role, whatever that may be, but to take a break from that and to do something else really does help. It can help recharge you. It can help refresh you. So I encourage you to do that every chance you can, particularly with this environment we're in. I also teach, I teach fitness classes online. And I remember when I first started them, I used to do it in person. It's with a group up in Rochester, and I used to do it in person. But now that we're all together online, I've asked them right from the get-go is whatever angst you might have, you know, there's a lot going on, but please, please park that at the door. Don't try not to bring it in with you. This is your hour. Make it your own and enjoy it. Be with yourself, get stronger. Um, but give yourself the permission to do that. And I think that's really important. Number 4 here is move, right? A great strategy for us. And I'll be talking more about this again, I believe in August at another meeting, more specifically for you, the movement piece. But it's so important, you know, and if you have PD, your reasons to move might be different than your family member or caregiver than others. One thing though, in this time that we all have in common is that movement and exercise in our health can help build our immunity. And that's something that we can pay attention to, that's something we have control over. And I encourage you to move, if nothing else, but to help you be a healthier person and to build that immune system. Number 5 here is focus on what you can control. Spend your energy wisely, right? So mindset matters. Bonnie knew this. She knew she had to give permission to feel what she was feeling, but she put limits on it. And I think that's also just a great lesson. And it's something once I learned what she was doing, I try to do that myself. Bob knew it too. Try not to waste your energy on those things we cannot control. Your response is yours and yours alone, and that's where your energy is best focused. You know, there's a lot of bad things going on out there right now, but there's also a lot of good things. And again, it all depends, I believe, in what you focus on. Like my story back and looking for help. So one final tip here, and that is to celebrate the good times. And there are good times to be had. There are, whether you're sick or in this COVID-19 stage. And so I want to share with you a time too where my dad and I were able to celebrate the good times. So this is a picture of my dad doing the ceremonial puck drop at a Rochester Americans hockey game right up in Rochester, New York. So there's my dad's center, myself there. My brother came up from Long Island to be with us to do that. And so this is, you know, what a big deal. And my dad got this opportunity through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So they granted him you know, transport to the game and a box. And I mean, it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we all just had so much fun that evening. And so you can see how the captains line up there. So a story here with my dad is, quite honestly, I didn't know what I was going to get from day to day with his dementia. And so I felt the need before this puck drop, we're back in the hallways of the arena there. And I felt the need to kind of rehearse this. So I kind of said to my dad, I go, let's go through this. So he had the puck in his hand and he said, I said to him, I said, okay, Dad, when we get out there and you drop the puck, what are you going to do? And he rears up his arm as if to throw the puck. And I'm like, oh, no, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. And so I kind of gathered myself up and I said, Dad, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go out and we're going to drop the puck. And so I said, let's rehearse this one more time. So I said, Dad, when we go out there, how are you going to do it? And he reared back again and he winked at me. And that little stinker was putting me on the whole time. He had faculty enough to really give me the business, if you will. So he looked at me, he says, I got this. And again, I've seen things change real quick, but I was like, I have faith in this. He is in his element right now. I have faith that he's going to do exactly the right thing. And so we walk out onto the ice and there we are, and the two captains come up and there's video cameras and photographers all around and the folks in the stands. And he got to them and the players lined up and he looked at them both. He said, okay, boys. And he dropped the puck perfectly. It was just wonderful. The captain shook his hand. The captain of the Americans gave him the puck. And that's something that I still have actually, and we'll just cherish that time. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I celebrate the good times, right? They're there if you look for them. And so in closing here, I just want to say you're stronger than you think. We learned some lessons here from Bonnie and from Bob, and hopefully from my reading from my book. I hope that's something that you can kind of take hold of and embrace moving forward. And remember to define your new normal, not with what you can't do, but define it with what you can do, and try to keep that focus. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. I guess we can go ahead. I do have some contact information before we open up to the Q&A. If you want to see the full blog stories of Bob and Bonnie, and actually quite a few others, you can go to my blog, which is www.agingwellnow.com. You'll see more information about my book there as well. But I hope you'll take a look at that and check things out. If you like the blog and want to see more things, you can sign up to get notifications for those. Not necessary, but anyway, I hope I can be a resource for you, and I hope you'll consider that of me to be a resource for you. So my email there as well, Nancy@agingwell.com, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. So thank you. Thanks very much. I'm going to go ahead, Alexis, maybe, and stop sharing here,
Okay.
and then we can have the Q&A. There we go. So again, thanks again. But is it the chat box, Alexis, maybe, that folks can use?
So they can use the chat box, and everyone has been, for the most part, unmuted unless they're muted themselves, and they can talk that way as well.
Very good.
So if you want to use the chat, feel free, and I can relay your questions out loud, or if you want to just go ahead and say them, feel free.
Good. Thank you, Alexis.
Sure.
Good.
Well, the first thing we should say is thank you. It was very well done.
Yes,
Oh, thank you, Pat, very much. Thank you all.
indeed, very nice.
Privileged to be here. Thank you. Thanks very
You
much.
know, Nancy, I'm just looking at the back cover of your book. There's something that I love that you said, sometimes we don't choose our journeys, they choose us. More and more of us will be called upon to be caregivers at some point in our lives. Not only can you survive it, you can thrive. Better days are ahead, and they begin with you. I just love that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pat. Thanks for sharing that. It's not easy, right? It's
Right.
It's never easy. And I guess maybe a strong faith comes into play here, doesn't it? But you know, again, I've had the opportunity to reflect on all this too. And sometimes you can't see it. you know, that expression, you know, one door closes, another one opens. Well, where is that door? Sometimes, right? And so it's a faith. You may not know why something's happening right now. It may be months. Quite honestly, it could be years down the road. And I didn't see mine, and it took some time to see that. So again, faith comes into play. But I am, you know, that saying, things happen for a reason. I'm a believer of that. So yeah. But I think your stories also too matter. And, you know, whether it's today or just moving forward, you know, sharing your stories, sharing maybe what happened today, and you never know who it might help. You never know who it might help. I'll share a story unless anybody's got something burning they want to say, but just before I came online, so again, I'm up down here in Apollo Beach, Florida, and we have a rental set up in 3 weeks to come and visit. And it's about a half hour from my mother-in-law. She lives in Horseheads, New York. And just before I came on, I heard that Governor Cuomo has said that anybody from Florida in particular, and I get it, I'm not
Anywhere,
arguing it,
yeah.
you have
14
to
days.
self-quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's how long we have the rental.
Oh, well.
So, you know, I saw it come through. I got a couple text messages and people are like, oh no. And I'm like, I know. I said, we'll you know, I think of Bob's plan B. I said, we'll come up with something. But the first thing is, you know, later on today, I'll sit down and look through it and fully understand what's going on here. And, you know, maybe it's just not meant to be. So maybe we come back in the fall. I don't know. But we'll cross that bridge. But yeah, all of a sudden change happens. Well,
Yeah, absolutely.
yep. Thank goodness for Zoom. I've used it a lot. I know you guys have. And you don't want to get what they call that zoomed out when you do so much that you're just like,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
you know,
Yes.
there's that piece of it too. But
Yes.
I'm probably doing between my classes, I'm doing 3 classes a week, programs, and even, you know, time with loved ones and family. So I'm probably on it 6-7 times a week.
Wow.
And thank goodness for it. It's
Yeah.
been wonderful.
Nancy, this is Gail. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Gail. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Well, I read your book, and I know your father, you know, had a type of Alzheimer's, and Jack has Parkinson's, but also with Parkinson's dementia. So just to pass on, really, that your book was very supportive and helpful and applicable to our type of dementia, which is a little different. And I appreciated it. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Gail, for sharing that. That means a lot to me. It really does. You know, dementia it can be a catch-all, right? I mean, it's a catch-all for all different kinds of dementia. And though my dad, there were differing diagnoses along the way, and I learned to accept that, as hard as that was. But one thing they did say is that he did not have Alzheimer's. That is more like a steady decline down over time, not a lot of, you know, hills and valleys, if you will. When my dad fell ill one time and he was hospitalized, they actually thought he had Lewy body dementia. And I don't know if you know, that kind. And again, I know some of you have read my book. You want to know these things. And in the end, you know, I just kind of wanted to do what I needed to do on a day-to-day basis. And Dr. Kokersberger, who was my dad's physician, he responded to my book. He read it and was kind enough to actually do a review of it. But he even said, he goes, I'm so glad you pointed that out, because it is, it's easy to get hung up in the specifics. You want to know. But oftentimes it's a mixed bag. And, you know, some of the research is even showing that now in terms of the, you know, looking at the dementia side of things. But sometimes you just gotta know what you're presented with and find how you can make it better and move on versus putting a label to it. Not easy, but something I think worthwhile too. So thank you, Gail.
One of the worst things that can happen is when you encounter a medical professional who insists that it's Alzheimer's and will not be deterred from calling any kind of dementia Alzheimer's. And we encountered that. And all of them are different. I mean, there's Alzheimer's, which basically erases your memory. There's vascular dementia, which is stroke driven. My father had that. And then there's Parkinson's dementia, and they all have, and there are different aspects there.
That's right.
And so it's really important that the medical folks get with the program and call it dementia. Don't generically call it Alzheimer's. All of them are dementias, but not all of them are Alzheimer's.
Yes, that's a very good point, Pat. Very good point. And I think too, you know, the physicians are certainly helpful. When my father was going through the VA at the time for his care, and he had a team there, whether it was the nursing staff and also a social worker who, again, you know how important he was if you've read my book. But they are all resources to help you, you know, work through all these things. So there's a team out there too. And I'm reminded too of something where I worked with a social worker who I worked with when I worked in home care up north, and we put together a caregiver resource guide. And I know your group is so good about having resources and knowing where to go. But I do offer that, and there's no charge to it. You can sign up on that same website that I mentioned before, and over on the side you can see where that caregiver resource guide is, and you just kind of, you know, put in your name and email, and you'll get it for free. It's in a PDF format, and it's really good for you. I wrote it, Deb and I wrote it when I was up there, so it really has to do with the Finger Lakes area. You know, whether it's Office for the Aging, the VA, the Alzheimer's Associations, Parkinson's Foundation, I think is in there as well. So, so again, I'm sure you're well versed in resources, but it's there if it's something that you might find helpful. And you can certainly share it with others. Totally free. So help yourself.
Okay.
Bob, are you okay?
Yeah, I am. How about you?
Trish, are you okay?
Checking out his body online.
Yeah, okay.
Got to be more concerned about the caregiver.
Gotta put her to work.
Yeah. Nancy, I wanted to say that I found your talk to be very interesting, and I didn't know about your book before today's presentation, but my mom has some kind of dementia, and I just wanted to say that to the family, it doesn't really matter what it's called, what the label on it is. The important thing is, how do we best interact with her, and you know, so sometimes she's great and other times it's really a struggle. And so I look forward to the caregiver guide and reading your book. Sounds like it'll be good.
Well, thank you, Heidi. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
Sure.
it's every day can be different. It you know, especially with my dad, minute to minute, it could be different. You know, I learned to go with things. I learned to go with the flow. Improvisation is a wonderful thing. And you learn it, you know, you get practice with it, you learn it. But you pick your battles sometimes too, right?
Yeah.
You may not agree with what they're saying. Is it really worth correcting them? More times than
no.
not,
You know?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But sometimes you forget.
Yeah, I know, right? That instinct that you're there and you're like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I agree. You're right, Ma. You're right.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So thanks for all you do. Yeah.
I'm going to have to sign off because Jack needs my help right now. So thank you again, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Nancy.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Gail. Did someone
Thanks,
have?
Alexis.
Oh, you're welcome.
Very good. Any other questions or comments or sharing?
Just
do?
thought I'd toss in that the Lewy body dementia is what you have in Parkinson's disease.
Ah,
And the other thing is when you're dealing with someone who is demented, it's always better to put yourself in their worldview rather than try to combat. So if the person thinks you're their granddaughter rather than their daughter,
Oh, yeah.
pretend that you're the granddaughter.
You are. Yeah.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's right. And thank you for that, for explaining that. I had thought that they were different in some respects. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah, the underlying pathology of Parkinson's is the Lewy body. And there are a subset who really don't demonstrate the other features of Parkinson's, only the dementia.
Only the dementia.
Yeah. And I think, Pat, you mentioned early too about other kinds, including an ischemic or a stroke. And
Yes, a stroke. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there
And
was talk.
that's-
I'm sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's vascular. And then usually there's one stroke and then there's more strokes that come after that.
Right. And there was discussion that my dad had that. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
which there was evidence of in his history. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Strokes can be devastating too.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So to clarify, a person with Parkinson's could also get Alzheimer's or just the Lewy body dementia?
The vast majority of the time, if a person with PD develops dementia, it's the Parkinsonian dementia, but
Okay.
all other types are on the table.
Yeah,
You can have
exactly. Yeah.
hypertension, you could
Yeah.
develop vascular dementia.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
There was
So
a thing
everything.
there's a variety called frontal temporal dementia, which
All right.
people
yeah.
behave much differently.
Mhm.
They're often hypersexual and
Mhm. Yeah. The first thing, and my understanding, the first thing that's different with Parkinson's dementia is the executive function, which is the ability to prioritize things and choose the most important thing to do first. An example of when it doesn't work is when we moved from another house to where we are now. I'm in the throes of trying to figure out where we're going to put the furniture. And John is well into this collection of 40 plus little tiny cordial glasses, and he wants to know where to put them. And that, of course, was not exactly the highest priority on my list. I didn't have a table or a cabinet to put them in. So
Oh dear.
it was clear there was one problem here. And so his memory is still pretty good. He tells lots of good stories. And that, but there is some change in his cognition.
My dad was king of the one-liners.
Huh?
His caregiver said that, and those sayings, they stayed with him
Mhm.
almost to the end. So it was really quite remarkable in that. That
Mhm.
was something that he could repeat and repeat accurately.
Mhm.
Huh.
Cool.
Well, John has one visitor. John grew up in Bloomfield and left many years ago and then moved back to Canandaigua with me. But anyway, there's one gentleman who visits him and also visits him on Zoom. And he's much younger. And he gets John talking about things that happened when John was growing up in Bloomfield. And so between them, they have, you know, these wonderful stories about people that are no longer with us, et cetera, et cetera. And it fills up a half hour, an hour on a Zoom call. And he's not repeating anything. So he's a wealth of knowledge. So, and he's very lucky to have somebody who's interested in hearing all the stories.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Very good. Well, I look forward to being with you again in August.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
now get with you, Pat, and we can come up with a plan for that. But I look forward to that.
All right,
Talking more
good.
about the movement piece. So, you know,
Wonderful.
if and if there's anything that you all would like me to do, again, I'll put my PT hat will be on next time. I can I'm certified for the LSVT Big program. I'm familiar with some other things, but if there's something in particular you would like me to cover, I'd love that kind of feedback because I can very easily work that in and make that part of the presentation. So I'm happy to do that. And I can even demonstrate some things as well. I have that capability. I call my my living room my studio because that's where I do my exercise classes. So I've got the whole setup there. So if you'd like me to demonstrate things, go through things,
That sounds good.
please. Yeah, you know, talk it over, and you know,
Mhm.
Pat, we can correspond by email, and I'm happy to design something that is what that's meaningful for you and what you want. So
Nancy, if there's
Wonderful.
anything, Bob took LSVT Big, and the thing that fascinated me was this worksheet for his writing with, you know, if you have that to show, that was so fascinating because his handwriting is so teeny tiny.
Right.
Mhm.
This was like going back to when you learned to print, you know, do a row of A's.
Right.
He practiced all the time, and it was so fascinating. If you can show that, because I think everybody with PD has, well, majority have that
Yeah.
issue
Yeah.
with.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I
ability
have
of-
resources. Yeah. Because I have my workbooks and all, and also online, you know,
Yes.
with the organization. So I'll look that up.
That'd be good.
Really helpful. And
Great idea,
then
Trish.
big hugs. I got more big hugs for practice.
Very nice.
Yeah, just those two were really fascinating.
Hugs are awesome, aren't they? And I you know, we
I
can't
miss
hug
'em.
so much now, but boy,
No, that's
that
true.
I miss that.
We hug all the time anyway, but it was more
Yeah.
pronounced practice.
Oh, very good. Lovely. Very good. I'll look that up, Trish. Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
related to that, the Dollar Tree stores have pads of paper that are lined for you to practice writing like that. You know, it's like what you had in grade school.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Where's the dollar?
Yeah, dollar. Whole tablet. Yeah. And Bob also used, our daughter found online a fat pen. That fat
Yeah.
pen.
Okay, yeah.
Really, and that helped with his, oh, you have it, gripping.
Oh, yes.
And the only thing is this one's made out of glass, so we don't
Heavy.
carry it anywhere.
Right.
Like I already
Oh,
remember that.
right.
I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So fat barrel pen.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is something worthwhile sharing, but I use something called a Dr. Grip,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a wide pen, and it's got, you know, this plastic here that really helps you to grip.
Yeah.
And that's something that I like to use. So if that's something that might work for you, again, much
good.
wider. I don't even think I have a normal skinny. I mean, this is a mechanical pencil, so you can see the difference
Oh, yeah. That
just
is
relative
good.
to size.
Yeah, that's good.
So, and you can get refills. So the outside of the pen stays, and you can get refills, you know, multi-packs. So I just keep them handy. So very good.
Good
Wonderful.
information.
Ideas. Excellent.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Well,
Oh,
good meeting, Nancy. Thank you again.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
We'll
My
see
pleasure.
you in August.
And Alexis, thank you too for making this happen.
Yes.
Thank you,
Oh,
Alexis.
Yes.
We couldn't do it without you.
Yes. Thank you,
That's
Alexis.
Neighbors'
Thank you.
kids.
Very good.
Thanks, everybody.
You.
All righty.
Thank you,
Take
Pat.
care.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Take care.
Uh-huh.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.